Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 659 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our ninth book just came out. It's called From Letters to Leaders, The Legacy of Service. So go and pick up that book on Amazon today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, today we're going to be talking about something that I think about often for fraternity and sorority communities, which is this idea of legacy. I think about it in my own life, especially as I start to get a little bit older, but I also think about it for today's college students and how we can measure the positive impact that you are making on your campus, in your community, and also within your own organization. Let's talk about it with our next guest. Nathan Cook is a captivating speaker, poet, and mental health advocate who transforms audiences with his powerful storytelling and spoken word. Drawing from his journey of overcoming adversity, Nathan inspires individuals to embrace self-leadership, make intentional choices, and take ownership of their narratives. Known for his unique combination of poetic expression and practical strategies, Nathan empowers professionals to thrive in their personal and professional lives while fostering emotional resilience and authenticity. Welcome to the show, Nate.
Thank you for having me, and that was a beautiful bio.
Listen, I'm available. If you want to pack me away in your suitcase, I am ready to go, and I will travel with you, do that intro all over the country. We got a deal?
All right.
All right. So, I think it's really interesting. I was reviewing some of your information and the website and all the good things. And you say that people change when they realize the cost of staying the same is too great. What was that moment for you personally?
Well, it's a great question, and there's a lot of times in my life that that's happened, but I would say one specific moment that was like the catalyst for all of it to start changing was really when I was around 23 or 24, and I was watching The Amazing Spider-Man 2 with when Peter Parker starts like going through these things, learning about his father, and I started crying uncontrollably, and I'm like, I am a grown adult and I cannot enjoy something that I want to enjoy because of the amount of anger that I hold against a person that I never met. And that's when I started thinking something's got to change, because I can't live the rest of my life because I never had a father and being angry about it. And that started a whole journey for me. I started going to leadership seminars all the time, and it was well worth it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. And you also served 8 years in the U.S. Navy, maintaining satellite communications under what I would consider to be very high stakes conditions. Talk about that experience and how it shaped your view of things like leadership and the pressure that you were under and even emotional control.
I will say that I learned a lot of things in the Navy that maybe I didn't expect to learn. Which one of them was, it's a paradox being in the Navy and expecting to have individual thought and at the same time only follow orders. Um, and it became a bit of like a logical a problem where when I would get orders from leadership, I'd be like, I that doesn't sound logical at all. And then I would find out that they had just let the leadership trickle down to them. And there's a lot of situations that would happen because it was more scary to stand up for yourself than it was to just do whatever it was that sucked, for better words. The emotional control was hard, especially on deployment, because I lived with 4,000, 5,000 other people on my ship. There was no private place, so I would go to the catwalks around the ship looking at the ocean and just kind of think to myself, all right, how do I deal with this? And suddenly one day I just started writing poetry, and that's that's what started helping me through it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you also talk about discovering the unconscious inner dialogue. What do you think college men are telling themselves that might actually be holding themselves back in life?
I do think it's a little bit of a hard question to answer in a way that I want to make sure that I'm not speaking for everyone and what they're going through. I can only come from I in that experience. And what I was worried about just going to the community college before I joined the Navy was I lived in a small town country, and I thought this is not going to get me a career. I was getting a welding diploma at the time, and everywhere was factory jobs, dead end jobs. Everyone was struggling to make ends meet. And so the only thing I could think about was, will the time I spend be worth it in the end? And I'm going to caveat off of Steve Jobs' speech here, but he says it perfectly. Hindsight is 2020. You can't connect the dots to the future, but you can always trust that what you're doing now will get you to where you need to be. And that's one of the things that I started doing, and that's what got me into the Navy and career and all that.
Mm, really nice. And I love your keynote. It's called From Victim to Responsible, Create Your Legacy Now. That's a really powerful title. Talk to us about that particular keynote and how that relates to college students today.
Right. Well, this keynote specifically reframes how we look at trauma that's happened in our lives. And I learned a lot of this from a leadership seminar that I would go to, and it really was just not. It's not about calling yourself a victim and blaming yourself or whatever. It's about being responsible for how you respond to the trauma, because if it's still holding power over you, it'll happen in college. It'll happen after college. It's not ever going to go away until we learn how to really like respond in a way that, like, okay, this happened to me and I accept it because it's for my greater good. It's for the better person that I'm going to become. And that helps you in many different ways. For example, my ADHD, when I was going through college, I was a victim to it for a while. But then I started thinking, I'm actually really good at being on the deadline and just getting things done. So, yeah, I'll use it to my advantage. So that's one example.
Yeah, that's a great example. And you're absolutely right. There's a lot of people out there with ADHD that are some of the most successful people on the planet, because they can do things that other people can't, right? I mean, you're reframing that as actually a positive quality where most people might look at it as a disability, but you don't look at it that way and you shouldn't, because some of the most successful people have ADHD, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, so you totally embrace that, and I love that reframing. I think is great. And you talked a little bit about trauma earlier, and I think a lot of the college students listening now, they've been through some kind of trauma in their lives. And I would just say to them, go and visit that counseling center that you have on a college campus, and go and talk to somebody. If you see somebody in your chapter that's struggling with alcohol or drugs, and they're blacking out every night of the week, there's usually something going on there that they're trying to cover up, and it's probably some kind of trauma in their past. And so the sooner you can deal with that, the sooner you can go to the counseling center and talk to somebody about that. And by the way, all that's covered by your tuition anyway. So you might as well put those people to work that are in that office, and help. And I think if I would have started that process earlier, I think I would have been, at a better place much faster. I didn't discover counseling or therapy until I was an adult. And there were plenty of opportunities for me to use it, but I didn't use that tool until much later. And so I kind of regret that. And hopefully your words and my words will empower people to go and get the help, that they need for that trauma that you talked about. And today, the college students are still struggling. I mean, I see them struggling silently with things like anxiety, depression, anger, like you talked about, or just feeling like they're not enough. And so, what is the danger of suppressing all of that emotion while they're in college?
Thank you. This is something that I think about a lot, especially since I'm a poet. And suppressing emotion, honestly, is a failed objective from the start. Because to be truthful, there actually is no way to fully suppress an emotion. Um, you can go numb for however long that you think, but it ends up showing up in ways that you don't actually notice subconsciously in every relationship in your life. And it could just be how you treat yourself when you're studying or how you treat yourself when you're on a deadline. It, these things go unnoticed when we try to suppress it because we don't want to deal with it. There's been plenty of times that I don't want to deal with the emotion that I was having come forth, and what happens is it all bottled up. And that's when I started losing control. And I was like, okay, I got to find a way to actually vent this out before it ever becomes destructive. And that's really just don't shove it down. Just don't shove it down. It's like the worst thing you can do. Maybe there's a way to healthily get to a place where you can let it out. That's what I would suggest.
Yeah, it's a good suggestion. You talked a little bit about anger, and I think about anger a lot right now, especially in this political climate. I mean, the costs for things are just astronomical. I mean, if you just look at the gas prices alone, and then you go into the supermarket and you look at the food prices, I mean, everything is escalating at such a rapid pace. It's not even anything closely remote keeping up, with whatever the rate of pay is. And so for college students, that can feel really overwhelming. And obviously, there's wars going on in our country, and abroad. And so, you have this talk. It's titled "Anger is a Destination That Gives Away Your Power." And I think it's something that we need to talk about. So, it feels really relevant today. What does this talk mean to you?
Well, first off, I want to say that having anger is not a problem, right? Anger is a human emotion that we all must experience at one point to even like experience human beingness, right? The problem is when we hold on to it for some type of feeling of righteousness. I did wrong by this person, so I get to feel right about this for the rest of my life. And that leads us down a destination that I like to go off of a good facilitator, Gabriel Nasovich. He says, it's the same as drinking poison and expecting the person you're angry at to be the one that to feel the effects. And that is 100% true. The anger I had towards my father, I blamed him for everything that went wrong in my life, but he was never even part of my life. So who's going to take the pain?
You.
Me.
Yep.
And that's where I was giving away my power.
Yeah.
So that's what that keynote's about.
Man, I love that. That is really good. I think about that too with like forgiveness as well. Forgiveness is something that's really hard for me. For people who've done me wrong, it's really, really hard for me. But I'm the one who's sitting with all of that frustration, and you just got to let it go. Because just for your own benefit, you got to let it go. But it's so hard for me because I just can't get over it. So it's difficult. The other thing I talk about often with colleagues and other people in the industry is this idea of accountability. Because we know that college students are going to make bad choices every now and then, and hopefully learn from it. But keeping your members accountable for their actions is just harder than ever. And you have this keynote. It's called "The Power of Self-Leadership: Owning Your Choices." And I think it does align very closely with fraternity and sorority life today. So, what does self-leadership actually look like for a 20-year-old college student?
At this point, being 20 years old and having the whole life ahead of you, right? This is a time in your life that there is just so much an extreme amount of potential that happens as a result of just starting to lead yourself before others do. And an example of this was when I started owning the fact that I went through foster care and abuse that led to the foster care, and I was adopted. And I started owning the fact that had none of that happened, I would not see the world that I see it for right now. I would not be able to have this frame of mind, right? So to me, owning my choices is not just owning my choices alone, but owning how I view the story that happened to me in my childhood. And that affected my college. Because what happened is I said, I don't want my kids in the future to see the same type of worry that I watched my mom worry about. I want them to have their own type of issues that they need to worry about rather than watching me do it. And that's what started my journey on going into the Navy and getting a different career and getting a bachelor's degree through DeVry University. So,
Yeah,
thank
I
you.
totally get it. I went through hazing, physical abuse as part of the fraternity. And I just remember thinking to myself when it happened, like in the moment, saying to myself, there's got to be a better way. Like, this
Mm.
can't be it. And then later on in life, when I started having kids, I started thinking about the same thing. Like, I don't want my kids to go through that kind of physical abuse in college. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I know that they're going to want to follow in my footsteps. I know they're probably going to want to join a fraternity and sorority for my son and daughter, but I just don't want them to have experienced that. Let them experience something else, but not that, you know?
Exactly.
And then you dedicate your whole life to making sure that that doesn't happen to another kid. And
Uh,
that's the, the way that it's played out for me, and that's kind of developed into what I'm passionate about and what I've dedicated my career to, right? So it is kind of interesting to look at it from that lens. You're a Grand Slam poet, and you've opened for a Grammy nominated artist. Talk to our audience a little bit, because I know they're familiar with lectures. That's something that I and the rest of the team at Greek University give all the time. But why do you feel that poetry actually breaks through where lectures can't?
I actually taught this recently in a seventh grade class, about five different classes, and I taught the three different ways of listening. And there's agree with and disagree with, and then there is be with. And when you're in the middle of a lecture, there are ways that you can benefit from it and be educated. Um, but it's harder because there's always this agreeing with what the lecturer is saying or disagreeing with the lecturer is saying. And it becomes, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right, no matter what. Being with happens in poetry, where you can resonate with the emotion that someone is feeling without having to worry about whether they're actually right or wrong. You're just experiencing their experience. And when that happens, you can actually have a conversation with someone and understand each other on a deeper level. And then the things that you say no longer feel like a lecture. It just feels like, oh, I understand. So that's the way I see poetry.
Man, that is awesome. And, I hate to put you on the spot like this, but would you actually be willing to perform a short excerpt live right here on the podcast for our audience?
I would. I only have to ask you, how many minutes can this go?
I mean, let's say, I don't know, 2 minutes. Let's go with that.
Okay, I will. I will go 2 minutes into this, and then you just hold up your hand for whenever it's too much time, because it is a little bit longer.
Go
Sorry.
for it.
Um, what if we all came from nothing, and we spent our whole lives wishing that we came from something? Or what if we came from something and we waited till it was too late to give to someone who came from nothing? See, how early in someone's life can you make a mark and create a spark and chip away at the bark so they can see themselves as a light in the dark, a true north to the compass on life's arc, a luminescent tree, learning that they can grow freely, and they get to see that their roots run deep. And though the challenge is going to be steep, they can always move forward with memories to keep of that one time that someone gave to them. See, how early can we contribute to someone's life so that God's creations can see that we have divine attributes, so that God's creations can approach life with a better attitude, because the demon that we face are the trauma bonded limits that have found a place on our souls. And so again, my question is, when did that change for you? When did someone give to you? When did you feel something new? When was the first time you flapped your wings and flew? And if you're having trouble finding an answer, let me give to you right now. And this may be a tough pill to swallow, but you won't ever discover your value by taking from others. You'll never see your light play its part by spreading hate to your sisters and brothers. So open up your eyes and see the child in each of us and help them break the crust and allow them to see the fortune that they hold within and wake up to each day and give to each other without making such a fuss. And I know It may feel weird at first, but come on, who told you that your day was going to be a bad day? Who told you that your dreams don't matter to you? See, the only person that can decide that potential is the beautiful soul occupying your body right at this moment. So, with that in mind, let's be intentional. Let's start making a difference for those that don't even know they can make a difference. Let's take matters into our own hands and let others know how much they matter. Because you could be the first person to change the world for the future world changers, the world shakers, and the gold breakers, and the next star player for the Lakers. And all it may take is some time spent in daycare and some time spent with others learning to share.
Man, that is beautiful. You have a God-given talent. Good for you. Absolutely incredible. Now I can see why audiences just love your work. Really, really good stuff. You talked a little bit earlier about reframing, and we know, both you and I know, that failure is something that everybody is going to experience at one point or another. And the question is, what do you do when that happens? So, how can the college students, when they have failure, and we know they will, how can they reframe it, whether it be academically, socially, professionally, as growth?
Thank you. And, as you said, like failure is something that we will experience 100% and some points, right? Being afraid of failure is fine. That's something that we will experience, but letting that control our actions is the problem. Because having the fear of failure and still moving forward is something that you get to show yourself courage, knowing that you will make it through this failure no matter what. And fail faster. I guess that's maybe not the best way to say it, but if you jump into it faster, you get to learn the result faster, which means that you get to learn another way faster if it didn't work out. So that's the way I would view failure in this life.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Fail faster is a great mantra, actually. But what's counterintuitive to all of this is that the college students today are deathly afraid of failure. And I'm like, no, don't be afraid of that. That's where I learned the biggest lessons in life is when I fell flat on my face.
Mm.
That was a huge lesson for me. And then I took that and built something incredible with it. But until that happens, it's like, man, oh man. I mean, fail faster. I'm telling you, if you do, you'll get to where you want to go in a quicker fashion. And don't be afraid of it. That's the big key. Well, listen, Nate, you are just absolutely incredible, and you really do have a God-given gift. So, congrats to you on all of that. Where can our college students go in order to book you to come and speak on their college campus?
Thank you for that question. It's one of my favorite ones. You can always book me if you go to my website, which is speaker.poeticimpact.com. And it would be very simple.
I love it. Fantastic. You made it very easy for them, Nate. So we appreciate that. And thank you so much for sharing your gift with us today. I know it made an impact on me, and I know it's going to impact the college students all over the country. So thank you so much for sharing that with us today.
I appreciate you allowing this message.
All right, you got it. And to our college students, if you enjoyed this conversation with Nathan Cook, also known as Nate the Poet, if you learned something today, I want you to share this episode with your chapter. Drop it in the link in a group chat, share it on social media. You really never know who needs to hear this message today. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Bye for now.